Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, everyone. Thank you for tuning into our session today. Um, the topic of discussion today is about RCAs and the cool stuff that the Meraki team is working on, and we want to talk about some of these use cases with you today. And before we go into the details, I quickly wanted to start off with some of the concepts that we introduced in the last session, particularly timeline. I think when we started talking about this journey of assurance um, with Meraki Health, we introduced the concept of timeline. The idea was we wanted to introduce something that's very easy to use, contextual, and that has all the relevant information baked in so that users can quickly identify what's going on and move forward, thereby reducing the mean time to failure. So today, to go into the details, it's going to be myself, Sunmeel Bhumkar. I'm a product manager on the Meraki team, and along with me, I have Apurv, who is also the engineering manager and is probably the brains behind all of the stuff that we are going to showcase today. Now, before we go into the details of the RCA, I want to talk a little bit about what powers some of these solutions that we are building, and it's really the Meraki platform. The Meraki platform has grown tremendously since I have been at Meraki as well. Today, we have roughly 23 billion data points every week. We are getting close to 10 million devices online, so we can get that data. We can look at that data, and that data lake is really what's feeding into a lot of our solutions. Not to mention, we also get visibility into some of the client-side devices as well. That really helps us understand, how some of these client behaviors are happening. And as you start seeing some of the solutions that we are going to demo today, you'll start to realize the power of the platform that actually comes through. And this really feeds into, how we look at intelligence and building some of our AI capabilities. Not only are we, looking at the data lake, but we are also looking at data across the network. And, we are taking that information and we are then feeding it into the root cause analysis engine that we have. Now, all of this goes into the guiding principles at Meraki. And really, there are some core principles that we try to follow. The first one is we want to provide enough data that allows some of our customers to reach to conclusions and make data-driven decisions as they are looking at fixing issues or running their networks in general. And a lot of this feeds into the next one, which is the context. I think that's one of the biggest and key things at Meraki is like we try to provide context in whatever we do. One of the biggest motto at Meraki is work simple, as my shirt says. But this is an extremely important piece because we can provide you data, but then understanding that data and making sense out of that data is another key example. We can give you data, you may have to open 5 screens and then make sense of the data, or we can provide you data in a contextual manner where you can, within a single click, you can understand exactly what is happening, and then you can move forward and quickly move on to the next steps. And the last one is, developing that trust with the customers. As we show the data, I think we don't want to go into complete automation mode, like we detected this, do X, Y, Z, and just move over. We want to provide you data so you can really understand why we're recommending some of those things that we are recommending. And you'll see some of these things come out as we go through the demo of, the RCA stuff that we are about to show today. And the last thing is, as I mentioned, simplicity. Context, data-driven decision-making, all of that is good, but at the end of the day, we want to make it so simple that it's easy for customers to really understand. That might be something as small as just making things colloquial, or something as complex as the performance analytics image, where a client journey across the network is shown in a way that you don't have to open 10 windows. Color coding shows exactly when there may have been a problem. And it's not just about wireless, it's the full stack. Meraki has wireless APs, switching, the MX firewalls, and we want to provide you that entire end-to-end view. And with the client health widget, we show you that information so that you don't have to take packet captures at each and every junction to really understand what's going on. And then the last piece is MI. Meraki Insights provides application-based intelligence to really understand what is happening. So it's a complete holistic view that we want to show, as part of whatever is going on in your network. And in the end, I think when we
Sunmeel,
talk about develop,
Sunmeel,
yes, hmm
can you back up just one slide, please?
yes,
So,
this one.
yes, please. So you're what you just said is so that you don't have to take a pack capture at
hmm
each and every point.
hmm
Is that what you said? So what will you be doing more specifically? I mean,
hmm
I've seen the timeline on Meraki. I've seen, the information that's going through,
hmm
but from a TCP or application layer perspective,
hmm
I mean, you're telling me awesome, layer two and layer three things, but
hmm
eventually a packet capture is going to have to be had.
hmm
Are you trying to say that's no longer true?
So what I'm trying to say is we are trying to point customers to a, a scenario where we want to reduce the reliance on packet captures, and there are cases where we've actually solved that. Now, for example,
You just want to do it
that
less. You just want to
yes,
have to do it less. Okay,
yes,
that I could live with.
yes, because we had an example, and I'll give you that example. One of our customers, they had packet drops on wireless.
Mhm.
Now, my first reaction is, okay, you know what? Let me start taking packet captures and let me try to figure out what's happening. Everything looks spick and span on wireless. Let me go to the link between the AP and the upstream switch. Okay, let me try to see if all the data traffic is mapping. Now, in this case, what happened was there was a second hop cable issue, which was resulting in packet drops. And if I were to do it without the tool, I had to take packet captures on wireless, then the first hop, then the second hop, and then try to map it. Within one click now, the customer was able to quickly go in, look that the cable was bad and it was causing CRC errors, and they replaced the cable and everything went well. So
So what
we
you're
reduced
saying
from
is finally there's that capability to see those CRC errors on the switches and through the line themselves
Mhm.
so that you don't have to. And so finally that information that should have been there all along, saying with love and support, is now finally there.
Yes, we've
Awesome.
added that. Yes.
That's great. I want to see
All
CRC
right.
there. I don't want to sniff for a CRC error. That's for darn sure.
Yes. All right.
Thank you.
Then when we look, uh, so before we go into the demo, I think it's a cycle when we talk about RCA, where you start to look at the network performance, which leads you to identify issues. You do the root cause analysis, and then you recommend solutions. And once, if anything is implemented, you go into the next phase to quantify the network performance. And with that, I'll try to transition over to the demos. Today, we're going to talk about 4 demos specifically, where I want to talk about, some authentication issues that I'm going to show. Then we're going to show, RCA's related DHCP. And then I'm going to talk a little bit about smart alerts because all of the RCAs means you have to go into dashboard, and that means somebody has notified you. We're trying to make folks more proactive. And then there's an end-to-end resolution flow that I want to show with sticky clients. I think that's a very interesting key use case. I know I've had my fair share of problems when it comes to sticky clients. And with that, let me quickly dive into dashboard. So, Betty, you mentioned you've looked at the timeline. This is something new that we're adding, and we are working in a limited fashion with customers. It's not widely rolled out yet. Uh,
Hmm.
but what you'll start to see is when you think about some of these association or DHCP and DNS, especially authentication DHCP and DNS, there's the client, there's the AP, and then there's the radius server, right? And generally, the radius server is a third external party service that we don't have any control over or visibility into. And so when you want to provide that view of where things might be going wrong, you need to understand, how even the server is behaving. So what we're doing now is we're looking at even the server level information and we're logging that to show you exactly what may be going wrong. Now, in this case, what you're seeing is something's going on VLAN 5. Um, this is an actual use case where a customer took a few hours to understand what's happening on a specific VLAN. And what we've done is we're showing you what happened with the client. It's colloquial, what we've detected, but then we're showing you, the impact this is where the data, contextual data comes in the picture. We're showing you the impact, we're showing you the evidence, and we're giving you recommendations. Now, these recommendations are changed based on, what we find. So it's going to be dynamically changing. For example, right now we're saying that there's a radio server not responding, but there may be two other potential causes. And so you can look at the data and you can see exactly, what may be happening. The third one is interesting, right? Because the response time on the network, obviously something's going on here because it's taking 1.8 seconds for the radio server to respond. So that may be something indicative happening on the, LAN side and something to check out. Now you can have some recommendations to try to ping the radio server to see what's going on to get latency. But these recommendations, as you can see, are changing as you move across the different RCAs.
Sunmeel, for those of us here and maybe some people at home, can you expand the TLA of RCA, please? What is RCA?
Oh, root cause analysis.
There we go. Thank you.
Sorry. One thing I would like to call out, and that is the availability of the data. I think a lot of folks ask about how long this information is available. This information is available for 30 days. If you really think about, the size and scale that we operate at and the information available at 30 days, I think that's a lot of data that we have to not just store, but also make available. And why this is important is because if you really think about, the customer journey, nobody's going to stop their work and going to open an IT ticket. They're probably going to connect to second SSID or figure something alternative and then move over. And so generally, it takes more than 7 days, to troubleshoot an issue if depending on how the operations are structured. So we have made it available for 30 days for our customers. So you can, just look back on exactly what has happened. Now, the second thing that I want to talk about was DHCP. And I think this was an interesting one that I found for DHCP NAC. It's hard to find DHCP NAC issues. And this is one of the cases where we found where, the DHCP server wasn't actually, responding. And so what we do is same approach. We detect what the issue is. It's in a very colloquial fashion. We show you the impact, how many clients it's impacting. We show you the evidence, and then we go into the recommendations. So it's very easy to use and understand. Now, what you're seeing right now is from a client's perspective. This timeline is also going to be available on an AP level versus the client network level. So you can look at the corresponding context and point of view to understand what's happening on the network. Now, all of this is still good, but this means that you are going into dashboard and you're actually looking for it. That means you're being very reactive. That means you have either a case that came in or somebody complained. That meant, okay, give me the MAC address. Let me go into dashboard and look for it. What that means, but this is a very reactive approach. We want to enable our customers to proactively, go in and resolve these issues. It's basically the difference between somebody calls into support or somebody calls into report an issue and you go, okay, let me look into it versus we're aware of it and we're taking care of it. And that's when, smart alerts come into picture. And I pulled out an email that was generated to a customer on a network. When you think about association auth and DHCP, there's a lot of things to think about. The metric itself is fairly noisy because if you think about especially wireless clients come in and go out, there's roaming happening, the association starts, it stops in the middle, and there might be failures every now and then. And so you want to separate the herd from the actual issues, right? So what we've done is we've allowed you to configure an alert based on auto baselining the entire steps of the authentication cycle, which means association, authentication, DHCP, and DNS. So all you do is you configure the alert and you go in and you say, you know what, I want to enable smart alerts. And then we detect the issue. If we detect an anomaly, we notify you with that alert. And it's not just an alert saying, you know what, we detected an anomaly, go figure out what's going. There's a lot of context built in to that alert as well, where if you have a larger deployment, it tells you where the org is, where the network is, and it also goes into, which step is failing. And not only that, it actually gives you links to, the top 5 most access points affected. So you can directly either go into the org or the network, or you can directly go into the AP to understand what's happening. So for example, if something's happening in an area where you have, exec sitting in, you can directly go to that AP and figure out if it's an AP level problem. And once you get into dashboard, everything is linked. It's all about, linking the journey within the dashboard as well. The customer journey is what we've really mapped out to optimize for, ease of use.
What I need is
Once
just
you
a
get
button that says it's the Wi-Fi or it's not the Wi-Fi. That's it. That way I can just show that to the executives so that they realize it's not the Wi-Fi, it's the network. You can build that in. I'm gonna make a wish down at the bottom for that one.
One day. So let's say you go into the network, right? You land on this page, which is at a network level, showing you, how the Wi-Fi is impacted, and you come here and you see the anomalies. You see all the 4 pieces: association, authentication, DHCP, and DNS, and you see how it's being trending. Now, the key important piece here is you can see the amount of failed clients over here, and you can see the anomalies are happening only at certain timelines, but there are failures throughout the network. What I'm trying to say is, like, this shows that there are constant failures happening, which seems to be the normal for the network. There is some amount of failures because by definition, wireless is mobile. But then we can detect what's an anomaly versus what's normal, and we alert you only on, some of those issues. Now, even from here, you can go into, specific client and AP, and, you can complete that flow. So from the email, you can go to the network level or the AP level. If you come to the network level, you can go again to the AP or the client. So that circle actually completes. All right. The last thing that I want to talk about is guided troubleshooting, along with the RCA root cause analysis. Now, till now, what you saw was we've shown you the impact, we've shown you the evidence, and we've given you some of the recommendations because, some of them may be on the radius server side and we don't have control over it. But now let's say we do have control over some things. And this is where the sticky client comes into picture. If you really think, now sticky clients are really hard to, set up programmatically. So I captured a screen capture of, actual network. But what this shows you is we've detected that, the connection is of a sticky client. Now, generally, when would you encounter a sticky client? If someone comes in and tells you, you know what, I'm standing underneath the AP, but I don't have enough signal. Now, we've built an algorithm that detects the sticky client. And even here, we are showing you the evidence. This client is connected to AP, this MIR45, but there's another AP that is seeing this client. Now, what you're seeing is the client being profiled at a network level to figure out which APs can see the client, and that intelligence is shown in the single timeline. And not only this, we will actually now start providing you recommendations based on this. The first one, obviously, is going to be to try and disconnect the client because the client is not roaming by itself. And when you click on the disconnect client, it not only stops there, but it actually waits to see what the client did. Now, if the client reconnected to the same AP, if the client connected to a second optimal AP, or if the client connected to a completely different AP, and there are different user flows that are embedded in there to guide you through each of the flows. And so let me go back to the presentation to show you the different workflows there. So as I mentioned, this is the same case that we saw in the video where the client reconnected to the same AP. But what if the client connected to a completely different AP? Then there's a different fix or there's a different flow for that. And we show you that as well. Versus if there's it connects to an optimal AP and it moves from there. So to recap, I think delivering intelligent RCA has a lot of context that needs to be built in. We want to drive outcomes from our customers, thereby reducing the mean time to resolution. And all of this is powered based on the global scale that we have with close to 10 million devices, the 23 billion touch points that I said. And, we are trying to learn from this. So if you see something, for example, if over here, you can see there is a thumbs up, thumbs down button. So we are actually capturing that feedback in order to evaluate how these features are doing in the field. If you do a thumbs down, you can actually provide feedback as well, where we are starting to look into it. For example, when we started working with customers on this, we're seeing for the customers that do engage with providing feedback, they're seeing a very high accuracy of the problem being resolved. So we are constantly learning. There's a cycle there too, where we take the feedback, we evaluate the feedback, and we look at what areas of improvements we have. And all of this global platform is built keeping in mind the security, because we are handling a lot of data. You have to keep the GDPR compliance and all of those things in consideration. And all of this is really setting us up to a path that provides that data-defined network. And I'm intentionally using that term is because there might be cases where we won't be able to automate everything, but at the same time, we want to provide data to our customers where they can start using this data to make quicker and faster decisions and enable them for data-driven decision making. When we initially started with Timeline, we started with analytics and insights, but then now we're moving into the optimization recommendation and some of the autonomous concepts.
That was my question: is how long before it's autonomous, right? I mean, this is great data to have, and wireless health has been great. So, two questions: one, how is this scaling out to the other Meraki devices through switching and through routing to understand? I saw like application level services, where those issues are, and then the second is how long before there's some sense of autonomy here, where we can say, if there's a sticky client, how do I throw a switch that says do this automatically if you see it and see if this works, if it's 90% of the problem?
So first question first, I think expanding into other products, MI already recently launched an RCA for web app health and for VoIP as well. So it is expanding to other products. It's a journey, it's not a sprint. And so there will obviously be a time before we go to it. And then if you really think about it, networking is a complex domain. There are so many interlinks that happen between wireless switching and MX. I think as we start making progress, there will definitely be added. Right now, I think you'll start to see more on the wireless and MI side, and obviously there are some things that you'll hear on the other products too. Now, coming to the completely autonomous, I think we are taking a cautious approach. Because I mentioned building that trust, right? We have a broad spectrum of customers, from novice users to tech-savvy customers. And if we just roll out some autonomous features, or we recommend someone, just go and do this, it can take a network down. And so we are being very cautious about that. Sorry, Drew, you were saying something?
I was just saying, what could possibly go wrong if you let everybody have immediate access to autonomous network fixing itself,
Yeah. On that note, I think I was reading an interesting article about using AI for applications, and there was an interesting graph that I saw about if you build enough autonomy but not complete autonomy, there's a certain level after which the trust starts to erode, because then giving up full control of your network, and especially network engineers, because as network engineers, we are trained to say, what, when it breaks rather than if it breaks. And so we're always way more cautious because the impact is so high if something goes down. And so there's a level after which, the trust factor starts to go down. And so we are being very cautious. There will be cases where we may start with autonomous. RRM is the first one. We already do that already. But when it comes to actually making config changes, I think initially you'll start to see more and more things where we will ask customers to actually make those decisions. We will take that feedback, and then we will evaluate if we need to automate some of these tasks.
So out of interest, how the data that you're gathering, the intelligence that is allowing you to bring, the simplification of kind of troubleshooting and management, somebody who's not a networking guy, I'm all over that. That works great for me. But out of interest, how much of that data can be used elsewhere? So could we take the information that Meraki is collecting and feed it into a ticketing system, for example? So could we do that kind of whole end-to-end management piece?
Yes, so Meraki Platform, you can extract data from the Meraki Platform. Alerts, they are available through webhooks as well. So you can, plug into things like ServiceNow. We actually have a connector built in, I think, to the App Store and ServiceNow as well. And so you can easily set that up. All of the information or most of the information available within Meraki dashboard is available through APIs. At the end of the day, it's the customer's data and they can extract it and they can plug it into the third-party systems. We have customers that have built their own parallel dashboards for their own specific applications based on the data available, or we have customers that use just Meraki dashboard. As I mentioned, there's like a wide spectrum of customers that we serve, and there's multiple use cases that come out of it.
That's great. Thank you.
On the smart alerts, how configurable are they? Obviously there's different scales of deployment where you'd want to configure those separately so as not to generate, say, a ticket storm in the event of failure. How much can they be configured?
So on the smart alerts piece, there was, let me just show that actually. Let me just pull it up. So on the smart alert piece, there's a couple of ways you can do this. The actually auto baselining piece, I think you just have to enable it and you have to set it up. I think we've predefined intervals before we can actually send these alerts. Apurv, if you want to talk a little bit about the intelligence behind on the alert generation, but in addition, there's also a manual way that you can deploy this, where if it meets a certain threshold, you can define how often you want these generated as well.
Sure, I can add on to that. I mean, the smart alerts are meant to be like super simple. Like all we do is just turn them on. We look at the past 6 weeks of data and kind of figure out, what the trends are and what the baselines are, and then detect anomalies based on that. For the other alerts, the other option is obviously you can switch back to the completely rule-based alerts, which give you, complete configurability. Like what SSID are you looking at? How much time are you looking at? What failures do you want? What are the thresholds? Everything you can set up there. So we give you two flavors of the same alerts.
That answers. Thank you.